Oh, and well, we just started something.
Yeah, sometimes it was straight family.
Yeah, they're close.
My only problem with. There's always only kids are.
Stop, call me to order, please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Newbauer.
Here.
Councilmember Robinson.
Here.
Rexel. Vogel. Ludwig.
All right, with that, we'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Do we have a motion?
Make the motion.
Motion by Councilmember Robinson, do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Vogel, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, we had a discussion item, Kevin?
I just want to ask, about C, or excuse me, D, Oak Grove Sewer and Water Agreement. This has no residual effect on any future development with Oak Grove. I mean, David, the question for you. It's a standalone agreement for this development only existing.
Mayor and Council, there was one particular part that was also added, to be future planned for future development as well.
Is that the one on Raven and 200?
I'd have to look it back up. I can get back to that.
Okay, and then, SAC and WAC charges, if there's no, I didn't read anything in there, is that according to market?
It's equivalent to what St. Francis residents are paying.
Okay. I guess that's all I had. Again, we'll keep in mind that our citizens not come first, but we, it's our system and our needs will be met. This is no way in impeding on future needs or you calculate some.
Correct. So Mayor and Council, this does have, the St. Francis residents in mind first,
Okay,
and their Oak Grove will be secondary.
all right. Excuse me. All right. Well, no, I'm glad this is a nice agreement to reach out across the neighboring lines. In the past, it's been kind of blurry and kind of hazy as far as neighbors getting along with neighbors and, politics change, people change, things change. So we're happy to help a neighbor when we can. And again, it was built to be used and there were many spaces to be taken and, this will take care of some of it. So it's good for both cities. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the consent?
I have just one question for Paul along the lines of what Kevin was talking about, so I just want to make sure. Obviously, it's a good thing to have more people hooked up and spread the cost out, but I'm just curious. What kind of extra administrative fees do we have to do to come up with the language, the documents, put this all together? I mean, is there any surcharge at all on Oak Grove for piggybacking off our system?
Mayor and Council, I think that's already been implemented when it was first set up. This is an old agreement. One of the agreements is run out, and that's why it's been extended. So this particular one, I think goes until, I got it here. I think it's another, yeah, correct.
But they're paying the same sewer water fees that our residents are paying.
Correct, according to market value. So it allows us, we can make changes in this agreement.
But in addition to what them paying the same fees that our citizens pay, are they paying?
Correct.
Are they paying an additional charge for all the paperwork that we have to do, et cetera, et cetera?
So Mayor and Council, initially, they had their legal start with it. And then our legal team took a look at it. We had minimal time involved with it.
It was, I think we were set, and I don't remember all the intricacies of everything, but it was like 3 million over 20 years, I think it was.
Yes.
Anything else? Sure. With that, we'll entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Do you have a motion? Motion by Councilmember Udvig, do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Frecklo, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Meeting open to the public. Yeah.
We have, Renee Whedon, but that's on the, Thomas
Okay,
item. Otherwise we have Stephanie Ewalls for, the Rum River Preserve Community, so.
I would say, well, they would still step up now, I think if we're meeting open to the public, so when we handle the employee thing, it's just the employee over there. So if you have something to speak on, you can step up and state your name and address for the record.
Stephanie Ewalls, 5120 241st Avenue. I'm just here advocating for further approval of the Rum River Preserve as a potential business owner going into that area. We were at the planning commission meeting and we are, my husband and I have bought into the Scooters Coffee franchise, so we're hoping to bring coffee to St. Francis, which everybody is really hoping for. And so I just wanted to say, please do it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody address for the record, please?
Hi, Renee Winan, 23645 under Cliff Street Northwest. Dear members of the City Council, I am writing to express my deep concern regarding the potential dismissal for John Faunus of the St. Francis Fire Department. As a former member of the fire department for over 12 years, I have witnessed firsthand the impact of leadership and support, or lack thereof, on the well-being of the firefighters. During my own struggle with PTSD, which I sustained while serving on the fire department, John was a beacon of support for me. He listened when I needed an ear. He worked tirelessly to help my husband and myself navigate through some of the darkest moments of my life. His empathy and dedication stand in stark contrast to my experiences with the leadership, particularly of Chief Dave Schmidt. After our initial discussion about my situation, I felt abandoned and unheard, a mere number in a system that often overlooks the human element of the work on the fire department. The recent agenda item regarding John's termination is troubling, especially in light of the invaluable support that he provided to me and his colleagues and the community. John has demonstrated a commitment to the department and its members that is essential in fostering a culture of safety and support. Losing someone like him who truly cares about his fellow firefighters would not only affect morale, but also further perpetuate an environment where mental health struggles continue to go unaddressed. I also find myself questioning the priorities of the department under current leadership. Decisions such as the installation of a brass pole into the new fire station, which serves little practical purpose, raise concerns of how resources are allocated. It feels as though there's a trend of silencing voices that challenge these decisions, rather than engaging in meaningful dialogue to improve our fire service. As a city that values its first responders, I urge you to reconsider the implications of John's potential dismissal. A strong fire department is built on mutual respect, support, and commitment to the well-being of its members. I implore all of you to support John Faunus and advocate for leadership that prioritizes the mental health and safety of all firefighters. Thank you for your consideration in this critical matter.
Thank you. All right, with that, we will move to public hearing. Item A, miscellaneous special assessment. Resolution 2024-38, authorizing and directing certification of municipal utility services, maintenance of private property, administrative civil notice fees, and repair of leaks in the lien upon premises.
Mayor and council before you tonight is the miscellaneous special assessments that we do every year. This is, the city is in special assessed against property, any delinquent invoices that can be associated to that property, and so we have, the water bills like we usually do, the stormwater, there's some code enforcement, there's a couple, building permit things, in there. I don't have anybody that has contacted me per se to say that they're showing up. So, like, we need to open the public hearing and ask for any input.
All right. We'll start by opening the public hearing at 6:10 PM. If anybody would like to speak on any of the assessments? Working. Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 6:11 PM. Discussion. Yeah.
I don't have any, I just wish people would pay their stuff on time and make everybody's life a lot easier. I get some people seem to think that the stormwater fee is something that they can just dig their feet in and make us think about it, but it's really, it's just.
It costs some more.
Yeah, it costs us a lot of money to go through this every year for people who just want to be paid.
I just have one question for Marcy. I don't know if you're able to answer, and on the MS4 delinquency, I counted a rough count of about 800 people. And I'm just curious how that compares to other years. Is that?
It is less, we certified like 850 last year of the final listing. So right now we're less than what we certified at the end, and there's still been some payments coming in that were not reflected on this. We've done, I think the $10 fee brought people pay.
And so along the same lines, I'm just curious, so when the official first notice comes out, if they don't pay, are we mailing out a second notice to these 800 households or what?
No, we, the first notice goes out March 1st, and they're due June 1st. And then July 1st, we give the 10-day, or the $10 late fee on there. And then we start the process of the special assessment, which we send them a notice. And so that's the second notice that we send out to anybody that has not paid.
So there is a second notice. Sent out.
Yes, because we have to for the special assessment.
Any questions?
Yep.
We go through this every year, and again, I know this is some form of silent protest for some, and others is a convenience, and they're willing to pay the 10%. We don't take these fees and stuff lightly. The stormwater one is a year after year situation, and we've tried to calculate it and make it fair as possible. Other cities do something different than we do as far as square footage of your roof line or your curb front and whatnot. As far as the assessments on people who don't care about their neighbors and their places look, dilapidated and disarray, and then again, they don't care about what their neighbor's place looks like. They just worry about what's going on in their yard. But other than that, it's the 12,000. I think is that number that hovered around the last couple of years. Has been about the same amount of money, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's not overly changed.
Right.
Of course, we raised the fees this year and we never.
Sure. I understand why some people do it, and I don't understand why other people don't. Again, we're here two times a month, and then also reachable via communication methods. They can reach out if they've got issues on any of the money that's being assessed to them, so. We're doing, the best we can with, and being frugal about it. We don't take it, we take this pretty seriously, so. That's all.
Thank you. All right, questions? I will say I'm thankful there's not a lot of controversy this year. In the past years, we've had a few different topics. I'm glad not to see as much of that. With that, we'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 2024-38.
So,
Motion by Councilmember Vogel, do we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Councilmember Robinson, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And we'll move on to old business, item A, ambassador donation request.
Mayor and council, before you tonight is a request for $1,400 for the ambassador program. We discussed this at the October 28th work session. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Kevin?
A number of questions. We're taking the money out of the municipal liquor store fund. The community patronized that store, is going back into the community. Not all council members agreed in doing this, and they, for various reasons or whatnot, but it seems they made a good presentation. They do represent the city in other cities, and it's, we also learned that they reach out to other cities who aren't as fortunate for even a float situation, and invite the participants to be on our float at various events. So they're, true like the name says, they are ambassadors of our city, and the money's coming from the right fund to do so.
Crystal?
I mean, we discussed this at the work session. I'm 100% in favor of it. They do their work. They are great spokespersons for our city. So I have no issue with it.
as I shared at the work session, I'm not in favor, and primarily because I don't believe it's a function of government, but I'm gonna read. This came in our Minnesota, League of Minnesota Cities magazine of September, October 2024, page 27. It's an article addressing what cities should know about donations and fundraisers. And here's their exact reading. In most circumstances, cities cannot give away public funds as donations. Donations are treated as expenditures of public funds. To spend money, cities must have statutory or charter authority, and the expenditure must be for a public purpose. And they continue on a little article, but even my simple reading of that basically says we shouldn't be doing it. I don't believe we should be doing it in the first place, because I don't believe it's a function of government to take money from somebody and give it to somebody else, despite how great the cause is. I have no problem with the ambassadors. It's simply public money that I think, the way I read this here, I'm not even sure it's legal. So therefore, I will be voting no. There.
I unfortunately wasn't at the work session, but I do fully support the ambassadors. They are a great representation of our city to different areas. They, help these girls immensely, watching them grow from year to year is very impressive. I support it. Support the ambassadors.
So I guess, I mean, I've heard great things about the ambassadors. I think they do great things with the kids that are involved. However, I'm with Councilmember Vogel on this as far as, I believe it's government's function to provide the services necessary at the lowest cost possible, and that's, one could argue it's a service. I would disagree with them, but I don't feel it's a function of government either. But that will entertain a motion to approve the donation to the ambassadors. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Motion by Councilmember Bradwick, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Freckles, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay. Motion carries 3-2. And old business again, item B, compensation study.
Mayor and council, before you tonight is the compensation study that was done by AbbVie this year that the council approved. And Michael is here from Abdu to give the final presentation on it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council, for the time on your agenda tonight. We're excited to present the findings and recommendations through the compensation and classification study that we've been working on with the city. As you may remember, I was here a few months ago. I think most of you were here for that meeting, we went over the project overview, the scope, what you can expect. So tonight we're hoping to go through some of that again, and then of course our recommendations that we have for you tonight. We're going to recap some of the goals and underlying assumptions that we had kicking off this project that guide us as we go through and designing a compensation plan. We'll briefly touch on analysis and methodology as we go through some of this. Of course, we're going to go through the compensation plan, and I apologize, it says incentive on there. There's no incentive portion of this. And then I have a slide at the end for questions, but feel free to jump in along the way if you want me to add more context or clarity to any of the points that we're reviewing. I will note that on the slide deck that we have here, it's meant to be a high-level overview. In your council packet, you have a full report with much more detail and additional tables that you'll find on the slide deck. So again, just if I need to add more context, stop me as we go through it. Again, my name is Michael. I work almost exclusively in compensation at Abdo. And then Leah Davis is also on the screen here. She's a partner of our workforce, our HR advisory team. Her and I work together on a lot of these projects. She was involved in the back end. Just really quick, want to touch on some of the goals and underlying assumptions that we had coming into this study. Again, should be repeat from the last time I was here, but we know that the city of St. Francis is motivated to attract and retain top talent. In order to do that, you need to be competitive with wages in your marketplace. We also know that the city has aimed to be competitive with their wages, trying to be about at market or market averages for their minimum and maximum pays. That's what we set out to do as we designed a new compensation plan as well. And it's important to note that we did get wage data for any collectively bargained position, but we are not recommending any wage scales for the union positions. Of course, those are all negotiated items, but they were included as part of the market analysis and as well as the classification or the scoring for each individual position. So our process, again, real quick, we went through and re-reviewed the job descriptions for compliance. What we mean by that is we're reviewing for things like ADA or Americans with Disabilities Act and FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act. We provided the city with a sample job description as well as some recommendations to make a few minor updates in terms of how they're describing the workplace conditions and physical requirements of positions. But otherwise, we found the job descriptions to be compliant. We went through using our Abdo scoring methodology to classify each position. And then utilizing the 2024 League of Minnesota Salary Survey, we did complete a market survey for each individual position within the city to the market that we established. One thing that we really focus on when we go through a market analysis is we look at the minimum and maximum of each individual market data point versus looking at, say, a market average or a midpoint to try to get a full view of what the market pay for each individual position might be. So with that, these were the cities that we used as part of our study. If any of these cities did not respond to the 2024 LMC survey and we didn't have their data readily available, we reached out to them directly and collected their information that way. We were able to collect at least 2 data points from each individual city here. We require 3 individual data points in order to match it to a job. For the circumstances where we only had 2 data points, we went out to, we expanded our search a little bit broader to the other cities within the state to make sure that those 2 data points that we had were consistent with what we saw within your comparable municipalities. So again, there's a lot more detail on the tables within your report on this. Just to quickly highlight some of the findings that we had in the market study. On average, you were both 3% below the minimum and maximum pays. So the minimum, your start step was 3% below the minimum market value, and the max step on your pay plan was 3% below the maximum market value. These are averages. Individual positions vary greatly, as you'll see in the report, but that is what we found. And it's worth noting here, and we'll kind of touch on this as we get into cost to implement, that we assume that most, if not all of the cities that we collected market data from would be implementing a COLA effective January 2025. So as the city looks into cost to implement and maintaining the plan going forward, we should be considering that most of that market data, if not all, would be going up. We anticipate around 3 to 4% as they implement COLAs going forward. In partnership with the city leadership team, we designed a new compensation plan for your consideration. One of the goals we had was to try to make the plan feel familiar. We didn't want to introduce a brand new plan with a ton more steps or way fewer steps. So what we proposed here is a plan with 8 steps with an increase of 5% between each grade level, and then 3.33% increase between each steps. With this plan, you'd be landing at 2% above the market minimum and 2.1 above the minimum and 2% above the market maximum for each individual grade on average. And then the range from minimum to maximum on all of these steps would be 26%, which is consistent with the market range. This table is simply to demonstrate what the new step and grade structure would look like. Obviously, there's a lot of numbers on here, but again, that slide, the previous slide kind of outlined the structure behind it. The market data that we have really drives this information, so we're grouping in individual positions by grade based on the market data that we find, and then designing the step and grade table accordingly. So in order to implement this plan, this would be the cost to get what we call get on the plan. This would only be representative of your non-union staff. Again, those union positions are negotiated. So if you were to move forward with the step and grade plan that we proposed, this cost represents moving each individual employee to the rate of pay closest to the rate of pay on the new plan closest to their current rate without going backwards. So for example, if I'm at $25 an hour right now, at the grade that I've been assigned under this new plan, if that closest step is $25.25, that'd be a 25% increase for that individual employee. This is the annualized cost if this were to go into effect January 1st for getting everyone onto the plan. This would also capture any cost of any employee who's falling below the minimum. So if the minimum is, I'm sticking with the $25 example, if the minimum is 25 and I'm currently at $20 an hour, that would be a $5 an hour increase to get them onto the plan. The city, the team at the city that we're working with has reviewed this at a per employee basis. And it's also worth noting that the city has approved a COLA, it sounds like of 3%, I believe, for January 1. So our recommendation would be to implement this new step and grade structure and then apply that approved COLA to that. Again, keeping in mind that most of the market data that we get, we assume all of those other cities are applying a cost of living adjustment effective January 2025 as well. So the next steps is we would recommend that the council acknowledge receipt of this report. Should the council want to move forward with this plan, we would recommend approval at a regular council meeting. We will work with the city to provide all of the analysis, the administration deliverables, the Excel files that they'll need in order to adopt and implement this plan. And then we'll also work on training any city team member that would be appropriate to administer the plan going forward. And then I would leave you with a couple of points here for discussion as you consider whether or not you'd like to move forward with this plan. The main one obviously is this the plan that's going to be appropriate for the city, the number of steps, the increase between steps, the placement relative to market, et cetera. And one thing that we're focusing on with all of our clients who are going through common class is how are you going to maintain this structure for the years to come. The last thing that we want one of our clients to have to do is go through this full process again in 5 years. We want to make sure that we're equipping you to maintain a plan and keep a marketable compensation plan design in place so you don't have to feel like you have to go through a full class every 5 to 10 years, whatever it may be. So I kind of cruised through that, but I'm happy to field questions from the council or mayor if you have it.
Well, this is pretty deep. I spent 2 hours looking through it. Again, I'm not the big greatest beat counter, but I appreciate what you've done. It was interesting to see the highs and lows of the margin. We know what the cost of our COLA plus this implemented cost would be, Darcy. I mean, the COLAs, we've already anticipated what's going to be in our budget for next year. But I mean, we look at the numbers, it's 35,000 and some change with our COLA. I mean, and again, across the workforce, people are getting cost of living. That's the way it is. I guess you don't really have to answer that. The bottom line is, what's our next work session, Kate?
Mayor and council, we're meeting on November 12th.
Well, I would like to move this to that work session and allow some time for it. This is a big chunk to look at and talk about. I'm not pro or con any of it. It's interesting. We paid good money to have it. I do have one question. How long is the study good for? The last study was done when, and how long is the study good for, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know the exact year, but that sounds right. We generally say that a well done and well maintained, that's the critical part. As long as you maintain the plan year over year, it can last you 5 to 10 years. That's assuming you're doing competitive cost of living adjustments. and you're maintaining things like job descriptions. If you have added headcount, you've appropriately classified that position for a new position within the organization. Or if you do a reorg, you're classifying those appropriately. A well done comp plan can last you 5 years.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to see, if it's feasible, which I think November 12th, that's not unreasonable, we still have budget talk to talk about. If we allow some time for this to be, toward part a little more, I think it'd be beneficial.
I agree with Kevin. It's a lot of information. It's good information. I appreciate it, but I'd like it moved to the work session.
I concur. I just have a couple real quick questions. When you talk about the next steps,
Yeah.
is that included in your contract or is that in a?
Yeah, so we include all of the training and support through delivery and implementation as part of the contract. One other thing worth noting that the city has been very gracious in providing us some feedback on a new tool that we're developing for cities to maintain plans year over year. So they have actually gotten access today to a new tool that's helping us get some feedback on how to deliver these going forward too. So that's something that we've been really appreciative of the city to help us out with it.
And it's the 35,500, whatever, that was, I mean, that number was ran in conjunction with Darcy or whatever else, I mean, it's not just a new number of Darcy, I'm assuming, right?
I went through it too, yes, there at the end, we had to update some people that had gotten step increases from when we started and things like that, we went to the end of the year, so. Yes, that number and probably about, I would say, $20,000 of that is in the general fund. The rest is in the enterprise funds.
Yeah, I'm okay with holding this to a work session. Lots to digest, but it's very good information. I'm really gonna be good stuff.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to at least accept the report.
Can I ask an additional question? Here? Sorry about that. I've got. Never mind, I'll bring it up during the work session. I went blank, I apologize.
No, that's okay. Well, yeah, happy to help with it. If there are any more questions.
I do know. Were any of the cities that you reached out to didn't respond at all? And if so, did you get any more work from reaching out to these other cities?
No, I believe we got all the cities that we initially identified as comparable. And no additional work that I know of yet has come.
I have to,
Yeah.
yeah. But were they pretty candid with you as far as, I mean, this is kind of a delicate subject in a lot of ways.
It's a fairly common request for, especially in the last couple of years, as the League of Minnesota Cities recently switched their survey providers. So there was, in 2022, there were 23, I think it was, they didn't have a survey available. So all consultants, including Abdo, was doing only manual surveys, something like that. And now as the league survey is becoming back up and running again, we've saw the response rates come back in there. Even with that, if we were kicking off a study today, we'd probably do manual surveys all around because that data from the league is 6 months old at this point. So all that to say, it's a very common request for cities for us to reach out. And we generally don't have too hard of a time receiving some of that information.
Thank you for indulging me, Mayor. Thank you.
So we'll entertain a motion to approve the study, at least while we don't have authorization, obviously, they implement it until after the work session. We so choose to do that, so we have a motion to approve this.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Fairclough, do we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
Second by Councilmember Robinson, all in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. New business, item A, separation of employment, Mayor Finger Johnson.
Mayor and Council, before you tonight is a separation request based on policy and participation. This item was moved from consent. It was posted on Thursday due to the employee requesting to speak tonight. The employee has chosen to discuss this in an open meeting format, as they also had a choice to do a closed session, and this isn't on their request. Tonight, there are other team members here that present pieces of the work that we're going to discuss in regards to discipline and the data that goes along with this separation request. Along with the chief, we're happy to answer any questions. With that, Mayor, I will turn this back to you to allow the employee to speak and council to discuss, and staff is present for the question.
Thank you. Mr. Faz, would you like to step up and speak?
Council and Mayor, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight. It saddens me that I stand before you regarding not participating enough on our fire department. I've been a firefighter for 21 years. I've been on the fire department, our fire department, St. Francis for 14 years. I pretty much dedicated my life and spare time to the city of St. Francis. My original intent was to read this 10-page letter. However, I'm refraining from that because I really don't feel that I should air our dirty laundry in public. I wish that, I would like to say is, I wish we had a human resource department. I know Kate made a comment in an email that exchange that we had earlier, saying that we do have a grievance process and appeals process through our policy handbook. Where is this policy at? I mean, there's not one in the station that I can pick up and read. We've gone through a couple different, it seems like we got a couple different avenues that we're supposed to look at it, but I have no idea where it's at to locate it. Am I supposed to look at it on the city website? I don't know. I do have, however, I will point out a couple things off of this letter that won't get too much mudslinging, if you will. Since Chief Schmidt has arrived on our fire department, he's really changed how the department operates. And that really changes on what we respond to in calls. One of the to this is when you were hired originally, you were considered either a day or a night firefighter. So what that means is if you had a daytime job, you'd only respond at night. And that's all the percentages you would be, have to be good for is the nighttime fire calls. So for instance, if like in June of 2024 this year, we had 53 calls of service. Out of those 53, 43 were considered during the day, 10 of which were considered night calls. So if a person was considered a night firefighter, Monday through Friday, I would only have to respond to 2 of those calls. But since he's changed how we're supposed to respond, now I gotta respond to all 10 night calls. That's just unattainable. I mean, if all these calls are going to the day, it really hinders the night people on how they can respond. They have to come to every call. They can't have a family life. We also have a patient X that we go to considerably. She was actually they were 1.6% of our total call volume. I have an email that was sent out by Dave saying that we were no longer going to be an all call for that. But then I also have an email from a captain who's calculating these things saying that email never existed. So are we getting credit or are we not getting credit? Or, is this going to be an all call or is this going to be a duty officer page? These are all numbers that just don't make any sense. And every time I've been reprimanded on this, I've asked them, can I have the documentation on what calls I went to, what calls I didn't? I need a spreadsheet. And I have an email saying they ain't gonna create a spreadsheet for me. And it's just, it's extremely hard to try to figure out if these calculations are correct or if they're doing them correctly. Because I have emails in here stating, oh, sorry. When I show them a problem, I'm like, they'll respond saying, oh yeah, we see the problem, we'll try to fix it, yada, yada, yada. But it never gets fixed. I have an email here that states for April, May, and June, my call percentages, it was 9% on April, May was 24%. That was on a June email. My July email, the same thing came back and it says April is 8%, April is 8% and May is 21%. How did it go down from one month to the next? I asked, can I get verification? What happened? I don't get verification. No one tells me how this calculation is being done. And it's frustrating when I'm trying to calculate the calls that I got to a black hole, that they're not giving me the information that I would like to see, because, you know, there was actually even a time when we were in our old station to the new station, we went paperless. That was 2 months that we didn't even sign a signature card, a signature sheet, proving that we were there. It was all on the officer that was on duty that was gonna plug in the people, and I was like, well, what if they make a mistake? What if they don't put me in? How am I gonna verify that they put me in or not? And now we change back to, we have to sign. It's just, I guess what I would like to do, or what I would like council to do is, I will give the information to you guys, I will give you the actual letter, my documentation, and the inaccuracies of what's going on, and I would like you guys to put it on a work session and discuss it then, or even talk with the fire department and have them figure out a more more way of, you know, transparency to figure out how they're coming up with these numbers, because I have no idea. I just gotta take it for what it's worth on what they're doing. And it doesn't make sense, because I've got emails that counter on, I'm getting credit for this, or no, you're not getting credit for that.
I guess at this point, you can ask, council, whoever or if you have a thought process as far as, gentlemen request. Yeah.
We've never had this happen before, so it's new territory. This is not a court of law by any means. I understand when you have a case. Police, the fire chief doesn't take his job lightly either, as far as losing one of his own. I'm sure there's some protocol. Again, we have nothing in our packet other than Mr. John Fennis will be here tonight. You know, I have hearsay to go by, so I don't know where to go from here. Dave,
Well, we
probably step in.
do have some officers here too, that we can ask questions to if we have specific questions, although I don't know if it's as easy to do that. Like you say, we're not hands on.
Yeah, again, this is, we're not a judge and jury here. I don't know the ramifications. I don't know how to go about it. Again, maybe the chief, if the chief wants to take his opportunity, are we then the deciders of all when it's done? I mean, we have Mr. Fennis here, we have police, fire chief here. What are we to do? We never had this in front of us, is all I'm asking.
Well, I mean, I think the main thing too is we don't want to turn it into a argument, right? You say something, I say something, things like that. You don't want to get ugly. That's what we're trying to avoid here. Obviously, kind of like what Kevin said, we're going by information that we've seen or had emailed to us, and then your statements. Crystal?
So my question would be on the grievance process. You mentioned about the personnel policy. Where is that located? And what is that procedure? Would it be, I mean, this is, you know, I understand why we have this forum. I am curious to what you have. I haven't seen that. I've seen just what's been sent to us. I would be curious what the grievance process is for this situation and how that would play out with the decisions we make this evening.
Correct. Mayor and council, so our personnel policy is at City Hall. A request through any of the leadership team would have been a process of getting a copy of that. Walking into City Hall at any time, that document is available, so both Jen and I have a copy. The grievance procedure is so I emailed that out this afternoon. I know you got a lot of emails today and over the last couple of days regarding several updates. It requires that there is a written request of a grievance. That is something that hasn't changed in our personnel policy for years. That has been set. But it requires a written request and it requires it within, I believe, 21 days of the initial grievance. So No.
What I'm hearing right now. I mean, there's always two sides to the story. But I guess what I'm not seeing at this moment, and I'm not saying it isn't there, but I'm not seeing termination. And the reason I say that is our fire stations now lives in disarray. I read East Bethel's recent ongoing situation over East Bethel, and they're facing some of the exact things he's referencing here. They're facing a severe lack of firefighters because their call volume goes up, and now that just 20% suddenly is 20% of 200 calls versus 100 calls. And so they're facing great problems recruiting firefighters. We've got a fully trained, experienced firefighter who wants to be a firefighter. And there's definitely cases and reasons, and sometimes to let somebody go. I don't really have enough information at this point to say that, but I just don't feel at this moment that's the right move. So I would definitely want an extended version, whether it's a work session, I don't know where.
I think, well, I don't know how it works now, it's been public, but typically work sessions, personnel is not handled in their work sessions.
He's out to go for a public situation now, so.
Right.
This is a public, it doesn't get any more
I
public.
don't know how that works in that situation. Sarah?
Yeah, we got some information coming in kind of later in the day. I tried to look over some of it. There's a lot of he said, she said going on, I think, back and forth. It's hard to decipher what's really happening. I think sitting down and I guess looking at all the calls, what is expected. If that's, I mean, how many of our firefighters are able to make, I mean, I'm just saying, how many of them are able to make those requirements? Is it something where we have to say, you know, if you're on nighttime, then you are only required to take this many calls because you do have family and other obligations that you can't just always go to every call. We can't expect a firefighter to go to every call that they're called up to. That's a lot. We're volunteering full time. So I think there's still some information I think that would probably be helpful to all of us to get. I'm not sure if we have time to get all that information or not. It's never ever fun to have to go through any of this. Please understand, we take every period seriously.
Can I answer a question, Mayor?
Absolutely.
Bring Mr. Vannis aside, the documentation and timeline is also presented by the fire chief. If this is the public forum you asked for, we're having it. Well, the chief should probably have an opportunity to speak, if anybody on the chief's behalf or the department's behalf, not just the chief. And then we can then step back and have more information.
Sure. Dave, would you like to?
Mayor and council and firefighter Thomas, I appreciate your approach to this tonight. This is not personal, it's not something that we derive any pleasure from. We have a policy that each firefighter has to make 20% of their calls per quarter. Now, I've been here 7.5 years and I have yet to fire anyone. This is the first time we have gotten to this path. So the first quarter of 2024, firefighter Thomas had a call attendance percentage of 17%. Okay. On April 17th, he was given a reprimand describing he was short, the process if things continue to move forward. For second quarter, his call attendance was 18%. He was placed on suspension on July 17th of 2024, again, with what our policy states. For the second quarter, he was also short his training hours. You have to be taking 12 training hours per quarter. And he ended up short on his hours. For the third quarter of October 2024, his call attendance was 16%. He was at that point placed on administrative leave because we had hit that third occurrence of of the attendance policy within a 12-month period of time. And I want to stress again, this is not without matters. This is what our policy says. I don't have the ability to hire and fire independently. So this is the process that we have to go about based on what our organizational policy states. With that being said, in your packet that was emailed to you, we did a full audit of everybody else in Anoka County and what their requirements are for call percentage and training. We still remain the lowest requirement for attendance within the county. Additionally, we provide extra credit for all of our staff. So we have 2 different types of pages that go on, technically 3 now with the Bethel station. We have station 1 call, station 2 call, and all call, or a duty officer. For duty officer calls, firefighter Faunus would never see those calls. But what we do in the back end is because they're calls for service, that they don't have an expectation to attend, to make our software and our reporting system cleaner, we actually give every firefighter credit for those calls. So on an average quarterly basis, we're being proactive with our staff and providing them with credit for attendance for those calls. So our 20% is probably closer to 15%. Our department average is probably 32, 33%.
For the fires.
For the firefighters, pretty consistently. We do have one-offs, right? And I know firefighter Faunus has had some career changes over the years, and he's driving truck, and those overnight calls are tough when you have to have, you know, so much hours of sleep every night, and we've had that discussion quite a few months ago. I get there's challenges everybody's life, right? And to your point, Councilman Vogel, most departments are struggling with volunteers, and it's not simply a symptom of running, it's a symptom of competition for personal lives and personal time. We all want to go to concerts, we all want to go to the cabin, we all want to do the kid events, right? And it gets tougher and tougher. We're fortunately in a position where we've never had this high recruitment. So, yes, I read the East Bethel study too. Fortunately for us, that's not our problem today. But again, it's not malicious, it's nothing at Firefighter Faunus as a person, as a personality. Our policy is pretty clear. It's, you make 20% of your calls, you make 12 hours of your training. If firefighters are struggling with making this attendance, they do get monthly updates on where they're at. So at the end of every month, they'll get a monthly total and they'll get a quarterly total. If they have questions, they contact their captains, the captains look at the numbers, and they provide them with an answer. Do we get one-offs occasionally with our data? Of course we do, everybody. But it's never been to a point where it has ended up putting somebody in a position of discipline, nor would we, if we identified a mistake, move forward with this, right? So with that being said, that's how we got to where we're at today. And I don't know what other process to embark other than follow our policies that have been approved by the council. And that's so.
I would like to actually add on.
Before you go there, can I finish with the chief,
You can.
if I may? How many firefighters do you have on staff now?
27.
And has any of them gotten to this point in the 7.5 years you've been here, or have you gotten any stage up to this point in the last 7.5 years you've been here?
We've had a handful over the last 7 years that have either had a reprimand for a quarter, or maybe they doubled up and ended up on a suspension. But we've never had this come up where we've had 3 consecutive quarters within a 12-month period of time where they failed to get attendance. Both on, and now rolling into the third quarter, it's the third quarter where call percentages weren't met. It's the second consecutive quarter where training hours weren't met. And the last leg of our attendance policy is you have to make 50% of your work details. So once a month, one of our trainings is dedicated to doing maintenance, right? Firefighter Faunus won't have the ability to meet that threshold for the calendar year. If firefighters are struggling at any point because of family, personal, whatever reason. We have a medical leave policy where they're no longer held to the standards for the duration of their medical leave. They have the ability to take a personal leave, which during their personal leave, they would be held accountable to policy to standards. Neither one of those have been expressed or asked for in this situation.
You know why?
I don't know why.
120 days, I think you said the last communication was 7/15. And now this is past October 17th, that's 120 days, no communication, again, Kate, to you too. No communication to our HR, what is made up of our HR department, we have no communication whatsoever.
Mayor and council, we have not been reached out to. Are you, I guess, referencing him reaching out to us or us?
I'm
reaching
asking
out-
if John has reached out to anybody in the last 120 days.
No, we have not spoken to Mr. Fox.
Okay,
Well, and the reason why, I mean, is because we were originally told from chief that if we talk to any city staff, city administrator, or the council regarding any negativity regarding the fire department, we'd be reprimanded or terminated. So
when was that stated, when did that take?
It's said to several of us, actually, there's one firefighter that actually made a comment to the council, and they were suspended for 45 days. So I was not about to.
I really, in today's society of open employment, open rules, I really find that hard to believe. Can you guys collaborate on that?
I don't know if we're allowed to speak on that.
Well, Dave hasn't given us an input so far, so please speak up.
So what the policy is. The policy is, and I guess. We have an expectation that you follow the chain of command. So if there's a grievance, if there's a concern. That you first contact your station officers. Right? If you don't get a reply of satisfactory response from your station officers. You go to the fire chief. If you don't get a satisfactory answer to the fire chief, you can go to the city.
Sure.
Right? That's never been a policy violation.
Well, that
The
contradicts what you
expectation is
said.
that you follow policy. So, and as far as the situation on the suspension. That wasn't because, and I don't know if I can comment on it. It wasn't directly related to talking to council at all.
Go ahead, sir, if you have more, I'm dumbfounded myself.
But
Okay, well, I'd like to go back to, I guess, a few things. I mean, you were saying that we're supposed to be at 20%. I agree. That's when I was hired. That's what I was hired to, is to have a minimum of 20%. However, I was also considered a night firefighter, not a night and day firefighter to accumulate all these calls. We also had a rescue sign up back before, where 2 firefighters would actually sign up to take on any kind of medical calls from 6 PM to 6 AM, and then 24 hours for the weekend. And those types of medical calls would not go towards the entire department. It would only be the people, the individuals that signed up would be responsible for that. We also changed from going from car accidents, fires, and major medicals. Now we go to every medical that you can think of. If someone's sick for 5 days and decides to call at 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and says, yeah, I want to ride to the hospital, the entire fire department is getting paged out for that. So I mean, it's hard to go from what I was hired as, and then now you're changing the game and changing the way we're supposed to reply or respond. And it's like, okay, and I've said to Dave and all
and that's been different, you're saying,
since he got here,
okay, which has been 7 years?
since 2017.
There was no, when I got here, there was no accounting for percentages. We actually had a firefighter on the roster that hadn't made an event for over a year, and nothing was done. Right? There wasn't a rescue call or an evening call or a night call. There was nothing being tracked for as far as I could tell, back when we switched to our RMS system back in 2014.
Well, I'm just curious, I guess, too, so if this happened 7 years ago and everything's, I understand the call volume, and we'll get to all that probably. If if this has been different for 7 years, why recently have you had a harder time with percentages, I guess?
Well, I have changed, for 25 years, I've been in lawn care and landscaping, and I had self-employed, and I switched to a career now, I'm an operator, and I'm over the road with my truck. So I'm, when I was doing lawn care, I'd do a lot of stuff right around here in the city, and I'd be able to respond to day calls, night calls, I don't care. But now I don't have that flexibility, I'm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, or, I'm not around here for any type of day type calls, I'm here for nights. Well, if all these calls are coming during the day, that means I have to come to every call at night. I have to sleep. At some point I have to sleep and have a life, I'm not gonna drive 80,000 pounds around with 3 hours of sleep because I had to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning for a lift assist. When, this could be easily worked out to where we could have a crew sign up for that to take away all this call volume to the entire department. We could just have a certain crew go there instead of the entire department. I mean, that'd be fiscally responsible to not page out 27 people to a call.
I guess I have questions all over the place, so I'm gonna probably ask everybody all over the place. Alright, where do we start? So if you, I guess this one's for Dave, if you respond and you're turned away, you get credit for responding.
Correct. As long as you arrive at the station, you get credit.
Okay.
And pay.
The claim that he was denied documentation, I guess, would anybody like to speak on that, or where I go with that?
I can, Mayor Council, the email that I received from John Honest was requested, as asking about his call percentages. In that email, he requested that I send out everybody's spreadsheet of everybody's responses and the calls that they went to on a monthly basis. And my response to him was, I'm not gonna do that for every single person, because that's gonna be very time consuming, and there's other things that I need to be doing. I never said I would not do it for him, I just said I was not gonna send out these emails to every single person, every single month. So that's where that came from. So if that was misconstrued, I apologize, that is not what I meant, I was never do it for you, I was not gonna send it out to everybody. One reason was because our numbers were not gonna match up. Because we had duty officer calls that we were getting paged out to that he was not gonna see. So no matter what, our numbers were not. So that's the reasoning behind that email, that comment.
But also in that same email, he states that patient X was never said that we weren't gonna be, was gonna be duty officer calls. However, I've got an email from the chief saying on 2/15 at 10:31, these calls will be duty officer 24/7, any medical, and I won't give the address, but that is the person. So it's like, okay, he says, no, I don't get credit. He says I do get credit. Which one is it? And which one did I get? Did I get credit or not get credit?
Would you like to respond to that?
He gets credit if it comes out as a duty officer call. So one of the things that we discovered through dispatch. This particular patient has 2 different addresses within the city. One's a private residence, one is an apartment building. We can isolate the private address for a duty officer call. But because the other one is an apartment building with a sub address of a unit number, they can't isolate the building and the number. It's one or the other. So because it's an apartment building, we didn't want to isolate the entire apartment building to try and manage
Right.
one individual client. I also don't think we visited that client maybe more than 4 times in the last 4 or 5 months. But I have to look at the numbers.
But that's not what I asked. I asked if I was getting credit, and he said no. And you say it should, but he's the one that was.
You're getting credit if it's a duty officer. Which
that
would be at the private address.
But it should have been that, to that address, and it wasn't, it was an all call.
Because we can't isolate the unit.
I'm all confused on that one.
In the apartment building, you can't isolate.
I get what you're saying there, but as far as.
Actually,
Well, nothing, that's,
the other address.
Has any other firefighters at this time had attendance issues?
In this order, no.
You say we remain the lowest in calls, or we remain the lowest recommended or required.
Attendance required.
Yes. Is that number of calls, is that what makes us the lowest, is it cause 20% is not pretty standard, or is that because we get less calls, or what's the?
Most everybody is 25, 30, or 35%. About a third of the departments allow you to sign out for some portion of the day, so a 5 AM to a 5 PM, or a 5 PM to 5 AM, and then 24 hours on the weekend. We actually did some modeling if we were to implement that sort of system. And I think Captain Kaiser may have some data on what our modeling looked like if we isolated signing people in or out. And correct me if I'm wrong, it wouldn't have impacted the outcome for firefighter Thomas.
I'd have to go back and check the numbers, but I don't think it would have changed anything.
So these aren't decisions that Dave, as the fire chief, is making independently. When we receive suggestions from Mr. Faunus or anybody else, that goes to our group of officers. And we vet, debate, question, try to find the blind spots. There has yet to be a suggestion that has been encouraged or supported by the group of officers that we haven't implemented. So we do listen, we do take feedback. Collectively, the belief, at least from the leadership team, is that the system we have is working for the vast majority of our employees. Again, I've been here for 7.5 years. I have had to go down this route exactly 0 times until now. And it gives me no pleasure to do so. So again,
I would like to add though, since he's been here, 10 firefighters have left this organization because of call volume, 8 of which still reside within our city or our response. And they chose to leave because they were going to get fired because of their calls. And actually, one of their resignation letters actually states it in there. I'm sorry, I can't meet my calls, I'm resigning.
Well, I don't mean to discourage you, or we don't have anything like that. I mean, the resignation letter, we may have somewhere, obviously not in front of us, but I can't. I get what you're saying, but it's hearsay kind of too, so it's like, what do you do with that? The day or night thing, I don't know, Carl, you've probably been here the longest out of the 2 of you.
so we did, like Fauna said, we have in the past had day shift calls and night shift calls. And then we had the rescue shift. The rescue shift we got rid of because people were taking advantage of it. So basically you can sign up for rescue from, what was it, 6 PM to 6 AM, I think. Well, we would have certain firefighters that would stop in at the fire station. They see that no one signed up on their way to work at 5 in the morning, and they put their name down really quick. And then now we're paying them because of the time. On a weekday, you got paid $10, I think, for a shift. And then on weekends, you got paid 20. So that, it was basically to pay people to stay within the city. And then, former Assistant Chief Lawrence pointed out that that's not really legal, I guess, to make people stay in the city and then only pay them like $10. You basically have to pay them from 6 PM to 6 AM, which is definitely not fiscally responsible to do that. So that's why we did eventually get rid of that, which we replaced it with a duty officer program, which basically you cover as many calls as you can. If that makes sense.
No, I get it, like I said, it just helps to corroborate everything, right? Because one person says one thing, if we got somebody that can back it up, it's good, so. That's all I have, right? Anything else there?
So if you're noticing that a firefighter is having problems meeting that, what steps do you offer them? What steps can they do? Because obviously, like you get sick or something, you're not gonna respond to calls. That's not feasible. So like we know he's short training hours. What would he be able to do? To make those up? per se.
On the training side, we have a lot of flexibility and we have offered flexibility when staff has asked for it, whether that's through our online training platform or setting up alternative dates to acquire training. I think we made it remarkably easy for people on the training side of things. Especially, we learned a lot during COVID of offering that enhanced flexibility and I guess furthermore, for a period of 2 years during COVID, we suspended all of our attendance requirements. Right, because we didn't know a lot about what was going on there, right? So we slowly started ratcheting back up that attendance, right? But we offer solutions to anybody that asks, for anybody that says, hey, I'm struggling here, I don't know what to do, whether it's attendance on calls or attendance on training. Hey, have you talked about taking a person? Have you thought about taking some time off, getting through a tough spot? We have one firefighter that's on personal leave right now. Right, so there are options available. We encourage people at any time, whether it's personal related, medically related, or other. You have to advocate for yourself. If we don't know it's a problem, we don't know it's a problem.
But is it, and okay, and I'll ask you too, is it on the individual firefighter then? It's not your job to go after him and say, you're behind on your training?
We do.
But you do, but
Yeah.
then it's up to him to say that, what can I do, how can I make that up?
Correct. So with each one of these circumstances, it's not any different than anybody else that has failed to meet the requirement. The captains provide the documentation. First, the captain and myself, or at the time when we had an assistant chief, would sit down and go, firefighter X is short on training hours. Okay, what can we do? Well, let's look at doing some online if they need it, or they ask for it, or they choose it. In the case of call percentages, again, they get monthly updates on how they're progressing. Right, so if you see at the beginning of the quarter, you're getting an email with your numbers and you're at 8% for the month of April. Might be a good time to start saying, hey, I'm gonna run into some more challenges here. This is what my May looks like. What can we do? I don't know that we've ever turned anybody away from that process of advocating for themselves on how we can get to a different spot. So, but there have been, with the exception of now third quarter, as we had to progress to the next one, the previous 2 documented incidents this year were face-to-face discussions with firefighter funds. So, and do you have anything to add to that?
We also do offer like pub ed events, so let's say you were to work French toast breakfast. So if you work 4 hours, you get 4 percentage points towards your call percentage. So there's ways to make up your percentages throughout the year.
I don't know how much we can discuss with some of the private stuff that came along with the private packet.
But believe it's all open now because.
To the extent that it needs to be talked about in a public setting, it can be talked about in a public setting.
I just noticed in the emails, both the reprimands and et cetera, I mean, it was came from this Carl or whatever, but it didn't even CC you on it, which I found interesting, but anyway. What I did see in there is there was communication in there about reaching back and communicating with leadership. I did see that. But what it didn't include is like, if you want to appeal this or whatever else, because clearly there were warning signs going on from the very first reprimand in there, where he wrote right on there, right by the signature saying, I have questions about the numbers. So I mean, the warning signs were already there, and then the refusal to sign in the next 2 letters. It's just like a great big red flag, something's going on here, and I recognize that he has a certain responsibility to speak with you, but what I'm not privy to, I guess is what I'm trying to say is how much other communication was going on between you and him, either orally or written. I don't know if there was more or not.
So the first line supervisor is the one that actually administers the discipline. That is in consultation with myself. Like, Carl isn't writing a reprimand that I don't know about. Those reprimands also get returned to me and handed off to HR to be placed in their file. These reprimands, in every situation, like I said, with the exception of this last one, as we progress to administrative leave, have been delivered in person and have been witnessed by an additional officer each time. Right, and I can't speak to what was had in those conversations. Carl can, if you want more of the details of what John and Carl discussed at the time of those handoffs. So, but it's not, we don't take any of this like. And I do want to make sure that everybody understands, and I think John would agree with it, that we don't take any of this stuff. Again, we are following the process that is identified in our policy in consultation with our leadership team, city leadership team, and we're following our policies. Is there nuance? There's always nuance, right?
Did you change the policy when you got here to what it was?
The policies for the city have changed since I've been here as well. The
But,
policies for the police department have changed.
but what you've changed is how many calls we respond to and if we get credited for day or night and all that other stuff. That configures in with all these call volumes.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I have a question.
Yes.
You're talking about there doing these policy changes on how the calls are calculated. When did that policy change go into effect?
2020 is when we changed our response model. And that was in consultation with the city administrator and the police chief on how we best utilize our resources and our assets. One of the big gaps that we're identifying is, with two exceptions, everybody on the fire department is an EMT. And we're variance to the highest level that the state of Minnesota allows to provide emergency medical care. Now, do we use every single variance on every single call? Of course. We're also the cheapest labor unit in the city when my staff roll out the door. We're not a Brooklyn Park, we're not in Andover, we don't have fire stations on every corner, we don't have police cars on every corner. We have a very comparatively speaking, our resources aren't necessarily as robust as others.
So my primary question was, when did that policy take effect? 2020, so it's been 4 years that this policy has been in effect. So it's not like it's a new policy that went into effect January 1st, 2024, that you're now being hit with substantially. It sounds like this policy has been in effect for quite some time. So that was I just wanted that clarifying, because I was questioning that as well. The policy change wasn't a new policy. It in fact is not a new policy per se. It's been around for almost 5 years. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
So on your letter here, you the one that says I disagree with the percentage calculations. Is that, what do you mean by that, I guess, or what did you mean if you?
well, for instance, on April, he gave you 9%, on May, he gave you 24%, and then June hasn't been calculated. But he said the total was 15%. Well, if you take 9 plus 24 and divide it by 3, I come up with 16.5%, not 15. So, but then if I do that same calculation, this one I've got April 9%, May 24%. However, the next email I have, it says April is 8%, May is 21%. How did it change?
So do we know that? Do we have any idea?
I can't speak specifically why it lowered. It might have been where I noticed a call was given to station 2 instead of station 1, so I had to go back and fix it. You know, or it was laid out as, a delayed call and we didn't get credit for it or something, or maybe he wasn't on there, or he was given a credit call that he didn't go to. So every month I'm always going through these reports every week, just to see where we're at with everything. And, you know, sometimes they might change if I catch a mistake on there. You know, I'm human, I make mistakes on some of these calls and stuff, and I go back and I change them.
So for me, I mean, I think the most important thing when somebody calls 911, if someone shows up, right, regardless of who shows up, somebody's there to help them. You know, I pray I never have to do that, you know, other people that have. The only issue I have, John, with your situation and saying that you changed job is you did make a choice to change jobs to be out of town more often. And I was on the council, I attended via Zoom and I utilized that when I could. Obviously, since I've moved over the seat to this seat, I've been here every meeting. But I had to make a decision too, and I had to give up certain things in order to sit here, which financially is not a smart choice. But nonetheless, I mean, there is some accountability there too, as far as saying, you know, I did change careers and you didn't make that choice. The argument of percentages and call volume and whatnot, I mean, that's something that obviously is with the officers and everything, the process that you go through is part of that. Anything further, Kevin?
No, I'm.
No.
Not sure where we're at. I mean, are we gonna continue this discussion or?
Well, this is, I guess, at this point, I mean, unless you have a final statement before somebody makes a motion, or a motion is either to continue it or to. I'll word it here. Sorry. You can either continue it or you can approve the separation of employment. And there's two options for the motion. So, you have a statement you want to make before we make a motion?
I guess I'd like to make a statement. You know, like I said, I've done this for 21 years. I've sacrificed, my family has sacrificed. I really appreciate the opportunity to give back to the community. And that's basically the only reason why I do it. I'm not trying to get rich quick. I could care less about the money.
Well, they don't pay you enough to get.
No,
rid
they
of it.
don't. And that's what I'm doing. I'm volunteering my time to respond and help somebody in our community on their worst day. If I can be that person to change their life, I want to be that person. But if I can't, if I'm 1% down from 20%, if I couldn't make a call because of whatever, and you want to terminate my employment, I guess I'm gonna have to go with you guys terminating my employment. I just think I'm highly trained. I've got a lot of certifications, and I just, in this point of time, I just think it's not, I don't know, I don't want to say fiscally responsible. It just doesn't, I mean, right now, everybody's struggling to get for firefighters. It's just.
Motion?
I'll make a motion to continue, because I personally would like more time to talk and think about it. I don't know what continuation looks like though.
Well, so if we're gonna continue it, the main thing is that you wanna get more information from staff, or we wanna somehow. And that's where I'm confused on the whole work session thing, because typically we bring something to a work session in a normal setting, where we wanna get more information and talk it out and all that. Now with personnel, we don't do those type of things, so. If we were to continue it, how would we go about, say if there's questions that we have for staff, I would assume? And I don't know how that would work, I guess, for Mr. Bannis as well.
So Mayor and Council, correct, we would either, to continue it, we would need to either call for a special meeting or continue it to the next meeting.
Right.
But what staff would need to know from you is what additional information you would like
Right.
from the department or from Mr. Bannis to review.
So what I don't know is there, as a reference server, is there more communication between the fire department and other than oral? Is there other, like, we got some written stuff, is there additional written stuff beyond what we saw?
Mayor and Council, I'll refer back to Dave, other than the packet that was included, as the personnel structure, are there additional documents that?
The only other document would be the document that was sent to us regarding the inventor.
So the letters, the formal letters, but staff would not have a lot of extra information at this time unless you wanted us to pull it and find something.
So I guess I'm a little confused. I mean, what I'm really hearing is that there really isn't.
So there's no point to
anything more
continue
in
it
the file.
unless you're gonna ask for more information, really, and
Right.
whether or not, I mean, you can ask for mean, if you really wanna go through everything, you would assume. You could ask the whole personnel file and go through it and see what you find in there if you. Chose to do so, I guess, other than that, I mean, I think I got most of my questions, I think that's true.
I'll make it easy for you, Mayor. I make a motion, we approve separation of employment. One, on the fact that the policy changed in 2020, so he's had 4 years to deal with it. Again, I appreciate your service, and again, the devotion that it takes to be a firefighter, I'll never know, because I've never done it, but I can appreciate the work that you guys do. I trust the work the chief has been doing for the last 7 years, along with the team that is currently employed by our city. You had 120 days of no comment, no comments, back and forth at all, you couldn't reach out to anybody. I find that very unusual and disheartening, to be honest with you. In the days of emails and phone calls and this and that, there's way too much of just correspondence without coming to the office and say, may I have an appointment with Kate, or can I talk to Jenny, or can I talk to the chief, or have someone, other witness there, police chief, or whatever. So I don't think any, due diligence on your part took place there. So you, strike one, you got a letter one time about it, you did nothing, we've heard nothing from the other firefighters that are now no longer here because of disgruntlement or whatever. So I've seen enough and heard enough that, you didn't make an effort, you're not the victim, I think you're the cause. So I would vote for separation.
Do we have a second? I will second. You second? Alright. And do we don't need roll call.
No, it's just a voice vote.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Where are you?
I was a yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, so motion carries 4-1.
I apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You might have been.
That's why you're involved.
New business, item B, ordinance amendment, chapter 6.
Mayor and council, before you tonight is an ordinance amendment to remove our section 13 related to taxi cabs. This is, ordinance that dates back to 2009. Since that time, they had a taxi cab in the city. We no longer have anybody under this registration for several years. Additionally, as the transportation world with Uber and Lyft have greatly changed the face of taxi cabs and some of those services. You will see a lot of cities either have adopted a Lyft and Uber ordinance or are getting rid of some of these taxis. So what this would do is essentially eliminate this ordinance, and it would leave the section blank for any future ordinance that we would need a space for. With that, I'm happy to answer that.
No, I haven't.
You had mentioned Uber and Lyft, and so I just want to clarify for myself, getting rid of this allows for Uber and Lyft in the city, correct? You're not gonna cause issues with that?
Correct, Mayor and Council. So we haven't done any regulations related to Uber and Lyft. They're here now. This just eliminates the one transportation style that has an ordinance where others.
Okay, no question. All right, with that, we'll entertain a motion, for the ordinance amendment, chapter 6, taxi cabs, first reading. We have a motion. By Councilmember Vogel, we have a second. Second by Councilmember Krecklo, and it is a roll
Mayor Miller,
call. Aye.
Councilmember Sudden.
Aye.
Vogel.
Aye.
Reclo.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Item C, Rum River Preserve of St. Francis PUD, first reading.
Mayor and Council, before you tonight, is the consideration of the Rum River Preserve of St. Francis Planned Unit Development. So this request would include the rezoning of the parcel from the B1 district to planned unit development. It would also include the approval of the phase 1 preliminary and final PUD plans. So the site in question is roughly 5 acres located along Bridge Street. It is former farmland, and as you can see, it abuts Rum River North County Park. It's fairly close to the high school as well. The site plan that was provided to staff would maintain the parcel as a single lot with one access coming off of Bridge Street, There would be both commercial and residential uses as part of this development, and that would be completed in phases. And so talking a little bit about the phases, the phasing is planned to move from south to north. So phase one, which would be part of the review this evening, would be in the southeast corner of the site. It includes a 3-tenant commercial building with 2 drive-throughs. Phase two would be the second commercial building, so on that southwest corner. And then the subsequent phases would be for the residential apartments to the north. So because we only have the specific plans for phase one, all future phases would require site plan review through the city's zoning process, through the planning commission and city council. So with PUDs or planned unit developments, the idea is that there is some negotiation there where the city grants some flexibility from some provisions of the city code in exchange for some sort of public benefit that the city would be receiving. So the applicant is requesting deviations to allow drive-throughs and standalone apartments along Bridge Street. We're also requesting deviations to the B1 district standards, specifically related to setbacks and site design.
Right, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can we ask questions as we go here? Yep. So what do you mean by standalone apartments along Bridge Street?
So Mayor and Council, right now, just apartments as a use are not permitted in the B1 district. Mixed use apartments where you have some sort of commercial or office on the ground floor, then apartments above, those are permitted. So that's the difference.
And I think you're at the work session today.
Now, those are the ones in the back that are placeholders, and for now, we ask business, the second business of the placeholder.
So standalone apartments are phase three, let's just call it later on behind.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
thank you.
So the comprehensive plan guides this property as a split property. So it shows future plans for commercial and uses on the south part of the property, and then high density residential on the north. And so the proposed layout, as shown in the PUD plans, is generally consistent with what is planned for the future land uses on that property. Diving in a little bit to the specific uses that are proposed. So again, phase one includes a 3-tenant commercial center building with 2 drive-throughs, so one on either end, one on the west and one on the east. And then phase two shows tentative plans for a standalone drive-through as well. And so that's what you see there on the image, are the more concrete plans for phase one and then the tentative plans for phase two. So as I mentioned, drive-throughs are not currently allowed in the B1 district. That is coming out of the policy direction from the St. Francis Forward Plan and the comprehensive plan, which envision this area as a pedestrian-oriented corridor. As part of the concept plan review, and this was reviewed back this summer, Planning Commission and Council were supportive of a drive-through in this area at that point. We did have some discussions about, if the drive-through goes in here, what kind of conditions would the city be expecting to see kind of in exchange for that? So we talked a little bit about landscaping and pedestrian circulation. So the PUD plans that have been submitted show 3 drive-throughs. So that is a slight change from the concept plan, which talked about 1. So staff would note that, if this is something that the city is supportive of, we should update our plans, the St. Francis Forward Plan and the comprehensive plan, to reflect that new policy direction, because right now that's not consistent with what is in the plans today. The residential uses to the north, again, those are kind of the 2 Rupton apartment buildings that are proposed as future phases on the north end of the site. Those just individual standalone apartments are not currently allowed in B1. But again, as part of that concept plan process, Planning Commission, City Council were supportive of allowing those standalone apartments. And really the idea here was that that site is still supporting a mix of commercial and residential uses. Whether or not they're in the same building as one another, maybe isn't as important as the fact that you're getting those 2 different uses on the site. So again, there weren't specific designs provided for the review. And so in the draft ordinance that staff provided, we proposed holding any future apartment buildings to the standards in the R3 district. That is your district today that allows apartments. And so just trying to keep it as consistent as we can across the city. if there's flexibility that's needed in the future, when those more detailed plans come in, we'd be looking at a PUD amendment process as part of that site plan review at that time. So that's kind of the general overview of the PUD itself. I wanted to dive in a little bit into the phase one, since that is also kind of more specifically what we're looking at this evening as well. So phase one includes a 3-tenant commercial center building. Again, you've got the 2 drive-throughs on either end. It would also include the improvement of the access road coming off of Bridge Street and stormwater improvements for the phase one part of the site. And then there are pedestrian connections that I'll talk about a little bit here. But the idea is that these pedestrian connections connect both to Bridge Street. They also connect all the way through the site up to Rum River North County Park. So with the drive-through itself, there was some discussion as part of the planning commission meeting just about kind of the layout of the 2 drive-throughs and how that works. Staff did ask for some additional information about circulation and how that would work on the site. And so the applicant provided a plan that was in your packet. I took a snip of it here. This is similar to the layout of the Anoka project. The applicant has mentioned that is very similar to what is proposed here. The idea would be that if you are arriving at the eastern drive-through, everyone would enter into that south entrance point, and then up, and to go to the eastern drive-through, you would go on this left lane here. To go to the western drive-through, you go to the right lane, and then around. So there is kind of this cross conflict point right here. And so staff would recommend that there's some signage, at the very least, to make that clear how the flow of traffic is meant to be. We did talk to the City of Anoka staff about how the project works there. Right now, there is only one of those tenants that's operational in the Anoka building. And so we don't have kind of on the ground information as far as how the 2 drive-throughs would work together. The access point, again, this is a single access point proposed onto Bridge Street, which would then be extended through and serve the entire development. The plans have been updated to include a center median to help kind of with direction of traffic, to make sure that people are coming in and going out the right way. The county did review this, and they provided comment that they would be requiring a right turn lane into the project with phase one. And so that turn lane was included on the plans. And you can see it there. So the pedestrian connectivity piece of this, again, this is one of the topics that we spent some time on during the concept and review process. Again, there is this emphasis of walkability and pedestrian connections in the Bridge Street corridor. And so to talk about having a vehicle-centered use in this area, we wanted to really have a focus on pedestrian connectivity as well. And so there should be connections both within the site and then kind of outside of the site to areas close by. So whether that's the existing sidewalk network on Bridge Street or the Rum River North County Park, those are both connections that we are supportive of and like to see. So right now there are 2 connections to the Bridge Street sidewalk network that are proposed. Kind of one on the southwest side and one on the southeast side. And then with phase one, there's also that proposal to extend a trail all the way up to Rum River North County Park. And so all of these trail connections have been shown to and discussed with Anoka County, who's supported of both the connections to Bridge Street as well as the connections to the park. And so those are plans that we would expect to see carried forth in the future.
Who's responsible for maintaining those?
So the trails through the site itself would be the developer's responsibility. Landscaping was the other kind of big topic that we discussed during the concept plan process. So the B1 district today requires buildings to be within 5 feet of the front property line of Bridge Street. This was something that was discussed, obviously with the drive-through where you've got parking and access lanes all around. that 5 feet isn't something that's going to be met. And so council was willing to support the drive-through with the parking, in exchange for a greater degree of landscaping between that parking area and the front property line. And so, the applicant is proposing to provide a mix of trees and, vegetation between Bridge Street and the parking area, particularly to screen for those headlights that may be pulling into that parking lot where people are walking along Bridge Street, trying to maintain that pedestrian corridor. And the landscaping that's proposed is over and above what the city code requires. And so that would be something that we are supportive of as well. I wanted to touch on screening. Screening is required for dumpster enclosures. It's also required between any commercial and residential uses. So right now the dumpster is proposed to be on that north side of the building. And then the idea is that there would be, again, those residential uses to the north. So we would be looking for screening kind of between those two uses. As staff talked with the applicant noted that they would prefer to provide those plans and put in that screening at the time of the residential phase. Particularly because that residential phase really hasn't been planned out yet. It's hard to know exactly where that screening needs to be. And so that's something staff is supportive of. Right now, it's just proposed as a condition of approval that at the time of site plan for those future residential phases, that's something that would be required. And then finally, stormwater. So the applicant is proposing to address stormwater separately for each individual phase. And so for phase 1, they're proposing an underground system as well as an infiltration basin just west of the access road. And that's something that the city engineer has reviewed and provided comment. So the planning commission reviewed the PUD back in October. We really focused most of the discussion on that change from 1 drive-through to 3, and then discussion about the circulation, whether that's pedestrian or traffic, just understanding kind of how that site would function. So after discussion, commissioners recommended approval of the project on a vote of 5-1. And so council action is requested tonight to either approve with conditions, deny subject to findings of fact, or to table and ask for additional information. I've got the suggested motion on the screen, and I'm happy to take any questions.
A lot of questions. Just one is there additional signage besides the signage on the building going to be requested?
So Mayor and Council, there is, let me grab the condition as it's written. So it says signage should be installed to clearly indicate the circulation patterns around the drive-throughs in phase 1. But it doesn't specifically say, you know, it has to be on the building or it has to be.
I'm sorry, I'm referencing signage that's advertising the businesses that are in there. I'm sorry.
Big old Dunkin' Donuts.
Right.
Oh, yes, so Mayor and Council, there are no requests to have any flexibility from the city's current sign code. And so it would just apply to the existing requirements that we have in the city code for the type of signage.
Which would be on the building or on this pole out front?
I believe, I haven't looked at the specific B1 standards in a while, so.
That's fine.
Definitely it's allowed on the building. I believe it might also be allowed out front, but I would have to double check for sure.
Only other question I have when it comes to free drive-throughs, whatever, is it in our code or whatever else that these businesses have to have dine-in as well, or counter, or could a business just be a drive-through only?
Yes, so Mayor and Council, this could just be a drive-through only. This does not have to be done.
And the applicant did mention like out front type, sitting at
I will point you to the applicant.
there.
So the ingredient here.
Would you like?
Oh, yeah.
To come to the floor?
Hello, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm Grady Kinghorn from Kinghorn Company. We're the developers of the project with the owners. So I think she's covered almost everything. So in the interest of time, why don't I just open it up for questions? Whatever you need. And the signage.
Well, that was one of my questions. Signage, kind of address signage already. My only other question is, do these stores require dine-in or a walk-up counter or not?
There's eating area inside.
Okay.
The signage was on the building too.
Thank you.
Just, the traffic in and out as far as, I see there's no right in, right out, so it's gonna be shooting across the bridge. If you need to go to the east, you gotta go across and wait for oncoming traffic, et cetera, correct?
Yes, yep, as designed here, there's. Yes,
The county is okay with that.
yep, the county has reviewed this and they've provided their.
No, there's no median. You can take a left where that design is right there. It's right in. And then if you're going to go out, it's gonna be divided where you would have it designated right or designated left.
Yeah, it's split there.
The right end heading west was requested by the county.
Okay, all right. And then as far as the third drive-through, I know you mentioned it in the presentation, there's no promises on that, we'll see, probably see how the first two work out. And, but if it's feasible and it meets the design of the next phase is coming through, it could possibly be approved.
Yep, so Mayor and Council, because we don't have final plans for all of the phases, we're trying to work with PUD to meet the expectations, as we see them today, and so, the applicant has provided kind of that rough sketch of a third drive-through, and so we wanted to accommodate for that, in the PUD plans.
Well, it'll be exciting to see how this all plans out, and we appreciate you choosing St. Francis, if that be the case, and this comes to fruition, I know you've worked hard with our staff and vice versa, you guys have made some concessions as well, so we're happy that you're making an opportunity here.
Well, just so you know, Hackinson Anderson is the one that designed the two drive-throughs that we're doing and that we did in Anoka. We have no issues there at all. In your packets, you'll also notice that we have circulation for traffic and semis and cars for the project already. And it isn't kind of like, if this works, then we can do the next one, because if we can't do all three, they're not gonna do any of them. That's what we expressed to the staff a month ago. Because we can't invest millions of dollars in something and then have somebody change their mind, because we can't do that. And originally, it started out, we were gonna have an apartment down in that, but the staff directed us to make it commercial. So that's exactly what we did. So, and the reason that we're kind of really fixated on these drive-throughs is when COVID hit, for those all of us who own buildings, some with drive-ins, some without drive-ins, the poor business owners just got hammered, and an awful lot of them went out of business. And so if we build something now, we have to build it with the idea that we don't know what's coming down the pike, but we're trying to keep the tenants in business too. It's not just so we can have more drive-throughs, it's just, it works very well. And so it's kind of like we do need to know about all three before they spend a couple $1 million on that cell phone.
I just brought the question, Jessica, is it if, and, or we're definitely, you think the third drive-through is for sure? I mean, I know it was discussion several weeks back, I had phone calls with Mr. Weaver and Brady as well.
Yes, Mayor and Council, the phase 2 project had some concerns with the commercial building not facing Bridge Street and the impacts of not 2, but 3 and how the traffic would be managed. And that, since we're focused on phase 1, the details of phase 2 were being pushed to the second, once they began the second phase and come with formal plans. And I think our decision, or the council and planning commission's recommendations and decisions would definitely be based on what we experience in phase 1. So it's hard to say hands down 100% you're guaranteed a drive-through, because it's going to go through an amendment process, and we're going to look at what's been happening in phase 1, and we will look at phase 2 separately when that's
Everything can change tomorrow.
plan.
So then everything can change tomorrow.
It's hard to guarantee anything, because it's going to come down to the planning commission's review and recommendations and the council's reaction to maybe what has happened in phase one and how it may influence the decisions we make for phase two.
Just to comment on that, after we finished meeting with the staff, if you notice, the entrance from the south has a median on it so that there's 2 lanes going into the property and 1 lane coming out around. The reason it's so long is because we provided enough stacking for those kinds of businesses, because you don't have long lines. They move through fairly quickly, but we wanted to make sure we had plenty of stacking even for the 2 northern projects. So as they're coming down, you can see they go quite a ways to the west and then they go down to the street, and they've got, they can easily make the right turns, you know, fairly quickly. And then we've got the Anoka County request for the right in heading west. And that also has stacking, way more stacking. In fact, in Anoka, there is no stacking. They just turn right in off of 7th. So this provides an awful lot more. And we've tried to take all that into account, because even though we agree, each phase will have a complete site plan that has to be approved through the process. But the one change that can happen is, well, we're not gonna do the drive-through on the second piece, because that pretty much kills that piece for putting up a viable building. If we were to put a bigger restaurant in there, we'd have even more traffic all at one time. So we're trying to monitor it and make it as simple as possible. And we think we've achieved that.
I'm not against it, and I'm not here to rain on the cornflakes, but it's a maybe or it's a for sure. Isn't it, Jessica, that we're at that precipice right now? I mean, they're gonna close this week or they don't close on the land. I mean, if we don't say, yeah, we're for sure on this 3rd drive-in, they'll say yay. If we say 3rd drive-in maybe, they're not happy about that. I'm just being honest with you.
Right.
I'm saying it crystal clear.
So like if they do, everything can change tomorrow. You get a different council and then so something else will be different, they don't agree with it, or you, nothing guaranteed is where.
Well, if they close on the property tomorrow or the next day, I mean, they've made a financial commitment. Now, they're making that commitment without a blessing tonight on 2 or 3. To me, it's just that clear.
Right.
I'm not against it.
Mayor and Council, the way that the ordinance is drafted per the planning commission's recommendation is that the uses that are allowed on this site, in this PUD, would be 3 drive-throughs, standalone apartments, and then anything else in the B1 district. That's permitted.
And that's all we're asking for.
Okay.
So that's how it's drafted.
I just wanted to make sure there was no remorse after it was all said and
We
done.
wanted to make sure.
We've seen it happen before with some other things, so. I'm good. Again, I meant everything I said. I appreciate you guys choosing us and choosing the city, and I wish the entrepreneurs an opportunity to flourish, so I'm good.
Yeah.
So it does say 3 in the ordinance that you've got.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't have any questions. I like the idea, brings more businesses in, a little bit more revenue. I'm not seeing any pushback from the community on it. Or here anyway. I'll leave those words tomorrow.
All right, we would entertain a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance 336, establishing the Rum River Preserve of St. Francis PUD at 3505 Bridge Street, Northwest. Financing as presented by staff.
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
You have a second?
Also, go ahead.
Second by Councilmember Vogel. Congratulations. Ordinance, so we'll do roll call, please.
Mayor Kabauer.
Right.
Councilmembers Francois. Aye. Vogel.
Aye.
Udvig.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Well, thank you very much. We're excited to come. And no, we're excited to close. We put it off twice, so, it's one of those things, you don't want to buy something and you can't use it. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Item D, eliminate creating agreement under the reserve.
Mayor and Council, before you is the grading agreement for the Rum River Preserve of St. Francis PUD. The applicant and developer of the Rum River Preserve of St. Francis is working incrementally to complete the 4 phases of the PUD process. And one step the city allows is to separate the grading from the site improvements performance agreement, which will happen at the next meeting. And this just buys them a little time to start moving dirt before the ground freezes.
Yeah.
So this is keeping the project moving forward. So we're separating the grading agreement from the final agreement that will happen at the next meeting with the second reading.
Questions, Sarah? Yep.
I have none, sir.
Kristen?
No, I don't have any questions.
So with that, we just entertain a motion to approve the agreement and waiver regarding material approval grading that PUD. We have a motion. Motion by Councilmember Rodrick, do we have a second?
One second.
Second by Councilmember Trekbow, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item B, special meeting to canvass election.
So Mayor and Council, cities with the general election, must canvass the local race results. And so I would like to call for a special meeting on November 12th before the work session, which would actually take place at 5:30 when the work session was already scheduled for. I will canvass the results of the local race and then we'll close and move on to the work session after. That is the earliest that I can canvass the results. I will receive the results that morning. There's a very short window of time that I can canvass the results, and so we were already meeting, so I figured there would be opportune time.
Right. Anybody have an issue with that? So do we need a motion to set the, okay, so we entertain a motion, do you have a special meeting as well to canvass the election results on the 12th at 5:30, November 12th. Motion by Councilmember Trekbow, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We would just have. Second by Councilmember Rodrick. And we don't need a, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Second meeting open to the public. Would anybody like to step up and speak? Name and address for the record, please.
My name is John Faunas. I live at 23318 Saddle Street in Northwest, St. Francis, Minnesota. I just wanted to, I didn't earlier when I had my conversation with you guys, I didn't give you the actual documents. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to add these into the minutes for my evidence that I was trying to communicate with the chief and the other people, and they chose not to respond to me. And it's like, okay, if they're not gonna respond, then I don't want to contact her because I felt I was being terminated anyways. So I might as well give this. And if you guys would like a copy of the letter as well, I can give you a copy too. You guys want a copy?
Sure. Yep.
I did not.
Thank you.
The actual email exchanges.
With here, but if you guys would like to see those, she'll have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mayor, I know there's 3 individuals sitting over there that I believe may have been here for an earlier discussion, so it may be a point where you can ask them.
Would you like to step up and speak on the item this time? Then just give your name and address for the record, please.
Trent Dorg, 234 Signature University. Hear about the special assessment that I got. You guys came out for inspection. I'd been keeping up, letting you guys know what was happening with the grant situation and all that. And when we had that, inspection done, we talked to, it was, Officer Hearn and, Jody. about what to do with it, and they told me to do the whole, abandoned property thing, which takes 28 days. So I started the process that same day, yet like, it was like 10 or 14 days later, I get another $6,000 fine for not having it done. And I have a 28-day waiting period before I can do anything about it.
Okay.
Kind of bullshit.
Okay, I don't know if staff wants to respond to that, or where we go with that.
So Mayor and Council.
We did already take action on all that stuff earlier. so-
Correct, you've taken the action. If there's questions, Jessica is able to answer those in regards to the code enforcement, but any action I would refer to shops for direction.
Okay, and we went through, this last year with you as well, I believe. Did we have, and there's an appeal process of some sort, or is that now, that was supposed to take place tonight, or,
For the assessment,
yeah?
that was part of our public hearing tonight.
Okay. Dave, where do we go from here?
Well, Mayor, it has been approved right now. If you want to take that, reopen that matter specifically, you can do that and get additional information or potentially continue it, but we would need a motion in a second to reopen specific to this property on this situation.
Okay. Do we have a motion from council?
I'm not making a motion, I'm confused about the process. I mean, are we gonna be able to present both sides fairly here?
Tonight, I don't know. I don't know. We could, I mean, we could continue it too, but that's where there's a deadline for that too.
I'm certified to the county by the end of the month.
November.
Yeah, so it'd have to basically, we didn't continue, it'd have to be the next, meeting, typically. Unfortunately, it was earlier, so that's why we did that. Last year we went through this as well. You weren't here for that, but, I mean, if you wanna make a motion to continue, see if you have support, you can do that. If you,
I just feel like I'm not gonna get our side of the equation. I mean, he's here, and
Right.
obviously he can represent himself and explain the situation. I don't know that word, but I don't know.
Mayor and Council, this property has been.
well, wait, should, we need a motion to open it back up, basically, if we're gonna have this discussion or no?
Motion to reconsider this specific assessment.
Okay.
I'll make that motion,
Motion
so
by
we can have the conversation.
Motion by Councilmember Craig, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilmember Vogel, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. All right, now that we're here.
This has been an ongoing work in progress for over a year, and staff continues to work with him, the property. One thing I suggested to Jody, because it wasn't part of the process initially, was dividing the property into zones to maybe help him make progress in each zone and meet some of these deadlines, but we are following the process of the first and the second, and currently he has received a first, second, third, fourth, and fifth offense. And so as time goes on and these nuisances are not cleaned up,
Let me also
the
add
fines.
that I didn't receive a first, second, third, fourth, or fifth offense coming to my address.
Again?
The first thing that I received, the first notification I received of any of this was the final,
Are you talking about the first time or this time?
what do you mean the first time or this time? It's all,
There was last year's situation where you didn't receive anything, and then
this is a continuation of that?
this is a
the second-
continuation.
Yes, this has
Yeah,
been
so it's the
on.
same, so it's the same thing we're talking about. The first notice that I received was the final notice. And even yet.
What are you talking about, though? Where's your timeline? I'm really confused at this point because
It didn't start over first, second, third, fourth, fifth, first, second, third, fourth, fifth. It was first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then it's stayed at fifth and beyond ever since.
Yeah, it doesn't start over each year, so you're gonna maintain.
Well, I understand that. I'm just saying that I never received those very first ones.
So if I'm,
So my first
Go ahead.
offense that I received.
if I'm
was like-
remembering correctly, there was a plan in place to get this cleaned up by, you know, a certain amount of time. And then, have the plans that were negotiated between him and the city, have you been following those? Have we been moving progress along on those and doing it? What is this 28-day thing you were talking about?
So initially the plan was for me to haul out 10,000 pounds of scrap.
Yep.
Every week, sending pictures and all that up until, I don't remember what day the compliance date was, but that, so.
Like you suggested.
And it wasn't just all my stuff that was on the property, it was others as well, and this one specific individual I had issues with, and so.
It's still,
when it started
you're
coming-
responsible for your land, that's your property.
Yeah, I understand.
Regardless of
I understand
who
that.
your crap there.
I understand that, I'm saying, so when it came close to that final date, and this other individual still hadn't done anything about any of this stuff, I started getting ahold of Jody, like, hey, what do I do about this, you know? And when the compliance date came around, we sat there and we had a discussion, and she told me exactly what to do, or, Officer Hearn, said mostly, told me exactly what to do so that it could be considered abandoned property, so I could legally take care of it. And then that process, it was a 28-day process of a waiting time frame for him to, after I send, him like notice or whatever, you know, before I can actually do anything with it. But during that time frame, I get an additional $6,000 fine sent to me for not having it come up yet. That's where my issue comes from.
Yeah. So
And
do we
then
have-
even like the notice that I just received about, this meeting or whatever, still has yet to get sent to my address. They're still getting sent to this other address. I mean, like, what the fuck?
So do we have any documentations of those additional conversations about the forfeiture property process that he was advised to go through when it happened? I mean, and I know that that's, as the landowner, the onus is on you to go through the process of being able to clean up that junk that's on your land, whether it's yours or somebody else's. But I'm just curious if we have documentation of, you know, the conversations up through the steps of trying to help him clear out this property that wasn't his, that was on his land. And and again, this is on you to make sure that that's. I'm just kind of curious on our end, what we did to assist with the situation.
I have all the emails between me and Jody.
Yeah, we could put together email correspondence, and Jody has been working with him since last year.
So if you want to continue until next meeting, you can do that and ask for that additional information. My question is, I guess, is so. According to what you're telling me now, and I'm sorry, I'm frustrated with the whole situation, probably as much as you are too. Where everything that's on your property now is this other person's then?
No, once I hit that 28-day mark, I went through and I got rid of it.
So your land is completely clear other than,
I mean, I've got scrapped over 100 vehicles.
but I'm wondering where, so
there's
you
no-
gave the deadline of like February or something, which I personally thought was ridiculous. I was waiting with the amount of stuff that was on the property that was unreasonable in my opinion, that you said you were gonna be done sooner than later, right? And I'm like, that's not doable, right?
I mean, I was out there working, I mean.
I don't know, I'm just saying, I think I think we extended we extended it for like mid-June or something, and I don't know what the actual date was off the top of my head. But you ended up with this, you're saying you ended up with this other person's property, whatever, the 28 days, and now you got rid of it, so if your deadline was February, we gave you till like.
My
May or
deadline was June something, was the deadline.
Yeah, you pushed it up June.
And the early compliance date was, or
There's check marks or
the
whatever.
check mark was in February. The date was in June.
So it's now November, where are you at with the stuff, or where have you?
I got rid of all the vehicles that he had like 20-some vehicles on property.
So
That
where-
I couldn't do anything with until after the 28-day period.
So now everything's gone, staff has pictures of everything gone,
Besides like 5 or 6 vehicles, yeah, they're all gone.
besides 5 or 6 vehicles, which, okay. I'm just, anyway. You have anything else you want to add?
No, speaking with staff that was handling this property, the last conversation we had is that code enforcement is beginning again because the deadline has passed and it was not met. And the property is still,
Not one.
Is
Did you ever come into staff and talk to them again and say, hey, like, where are you? I mean, I know there's emails and stuff, which I guess will.
Yeah, I said, as soon as I got that those $6,000 fine was in that waiting period, I sent an email right then and there, and then that was the last I ever heard of anything, never got a response.
When was that?
Whatever day that thing came in, the day that I found out about it. I don't know offhand, but it was a while ago.
Didn't we established, if I remember too, we established that we needed to have a good mailing and a good phone number. Has that been consistent? Have we been able to get a hold of them when we needed to? Because that was part of the problem too, was there was.
I hadn't changed.
I just wanted to make sure, because I know that that was an issue the last time, was that there wasn't, so we said, you give us an address. And this is where we're sending things. You give us a phone number, this is where we're contacting with.
And my
I
phone
just
number's
wanna make
changed
sure
probably
that
5
that's-
times since then.
Mayor and Council, Jody has been in touch with him frequently.
And the last time I heard from Joey was the day I got that $6,000 fine, so no one talking about now.
Mayor, just one thing, when I did send out the letters, Jody did tell me to send it. We had 2 different addresses, one, the address that he lives at, and then there's one in the property tax records. Just a little.
Ramsey or
Yeah,
Ramsey.
so I sent it to both of those places.
Did you send it to the St. Francis address or the Bethel address? The property is split in 2. My utility is one address.
Whatever it happens to Friday to us is where it would have gone to, because you told us where to send it, so whatever. There has to have been communication that's been going on. So that was.
I mean, I've told you guys 100 times what the address is sending to.
Okay.
Just come to my address and knock on the door. It's not that hard to let somebody know.
Would anybody like to make a motion, to, I don't know, how we would either be continuing or what, or.
Continue to the next meeting and then direct staff on what additional information you would like to.
Or are you looking to close this issue as it's already been addressed?
We have a motion.
I make a motion that we close it. I think we have already addressed it. We've given them plenty of time. I understand the fines are gonna keep going until it's cleaned up. I understand that.
So you're gonna tell me to go through a 28-day process so I can legally take care of it, but then because I don't go and take care of it my own way, then I'm gonna get fined $6,000 for it, cause I gotta sit there and wait. That's bullshit. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
You have a right to feel how you feel. No, I don't discount that. I think that the biggest issue, I think we try to extend and we try to work with you, and we get, to me, my frustration comes from excuse after excuse after excuse. I've held myself accountable sitting here for things, mistakes that I've made sitting here, right? We have to be accountable for our own actions, and we hear that you don't have a phone, you pull out a phone to get a ride from the office and from when Colette was here, that was when Colette was here. You know, you got, I don't know how many addresses, how many phone numbers. How do you expect to resolve an issue or show good faith that you're trying to resolve an issue by, I mean,
I've heard one address.
I know you have done.
And you
some-
guys haven't been able to fucking send it. I don't understand.
I doubt that it hasn't been sent to it, because I don't think
I've
our
got,
staff is
I've
competent
like
unless the
2 or 3
management
letters
is
after
competent.
them.
I have no idea what to say, but you said, you also told us last year that you got. There's, I don't know how many notices that you never got, but yet the one that you were getting fined, you somehow got that one, but didn't get the other one, which
Nope.
it just blows me away, it's just.
And I even have picture proof that was sent to me in the little packet that shows the address that they sent it to, and each one is the wrong address.
So my issue is, we have, you know, if it was just the individual stuff that you had to wait the 28-day notice, then, you know, then that would be one thing, but you yourself admitted that all of the things that we've been working on since last year still are not accomplished. There are still 5 to 6 cars sitting out there.
Okay, so I got rid of like
I
120 of my own cars,
hang
and
on
I
just
kept
one
5.
second. I'm trying to be polite here. I don't want to come into a back and forth. I want to have a conversation. So what I'm hearing is there is a bunch of stuff that is still left on the property that hasn't been cleaned up, that is still part of code enforcement, that is not your friend. I understand you're making progress and you're moving on all these hundreds of cars and all that.
95% of it's cleaned up right now.
So, but that's what my question is. There's still that part that's still not cleaned up, and that's why this assessment is here. Is because through a year and a half now, or almost a year, we've been working with you, giving you extensions.
How are you
giving you-
working with me when you give me a $6,000 fine, and that's really gonna make me want to sit there and finish cleaning up? That makes me want to sit there and go, fuck you guys, you know? I mean. Like, what the hell?
Awesome. All right, I will second that motion. And then all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Renee Woodin, 23645 Hundred Front Street Northwest. I would just like clarification on if city employees are allowed to speak to council without being reprimanded or not.
Well, there's,
If, my understanding is if the chain of command is followed, so if you've gone to people you are
Yep.
supposed to go to, and you still have not gotten resolved, then it is permitted to talk to council, is that correct?
and there's less and more in this situation. But the other thing is too, is if you believe there's a policy, right, to follow. And if you feel that, say, I go to Dave, I think you're being thrown on the bus again. I go to Dave with a problem, say, I don't think that you're following policy, now I go to Kate. Kate's not following policy, or Kate's done something that I feel may be wrong or illegal, or something that, not just because I don't like what she says.
Sure.
But because there's, something that's not right with how she's handling it. I think I got my point across. Then typically you can go up the chain again, right? That's, from my understanding, that's how it would work.
Okay.
And Dave could,
To the mayor, and then it would probably come to our office.
yeah.
Okay.
So, pass it along.
Thank you. I just wanted clarification. I think maybe this is,
Broken.
maybe.
Is that hard?
Oh, let's go take care of that.
All right. Anybody else? Name and address. Yes.
Jason Woodin, 23645 Under Cliff Street Northwest, St. Francis. I just had a couple things with what was going on with, Mr. Bonas. One of the things that were brought up was reporting, or lack of it. How the system is done, because Mr. Kaiser even admitted that it could be, human error screwed up. So we're talking about maybe a 1% that you guys are going off of. And it could have been done by human error. Is that what my understanding is? I mean, you got,
I don't have a data.
you got calls of 17%, 18%, one call. Could have made that 20%.
So I don't have.
And he admitted that it should be recorded,
Go
right?
on record and comment on that to put the city in a bad position, because I don't have that information in front of me. So it'd be irresponsible of me to even.
But these minutes are recorded, right?
Absolutely.
He admitted it here. That his reporting could be flawed. Human error. Right? You guys hear that?
Anything can be flawed at any time. That's
So you're
obviously a possibility in life.
You're gonna get rid of somebody with 20 years experience. Based on possibility of a human error.
No, it's lack of communication from what I saw. I'm the one who made the motion.
It
Total lack of
Look
communication.
how there was
for 4
emails
months.
back and forth. Asking these. both
You
these
didn't even
numbers.
contact our HR department. We have an HR department, there is policy.
What's that?
I said, we have an HR department and there is policy. There was no contact made. Like I say, you say exactly like everyone else. So you need to be accountable for your actions.
I get that.
Everybody's here to communicate every day of the week.
So you guys would be better off hiring a new firefighter. Training, spending the money.
But if they don't show up, they're not good at all. They're not good.
This is a
They don't show
volunteer
up.
fire department. This is not,
I'm not gonna get into it. I've already said.
it's volunteer. These people are
Well,
volunteering.
then take it out of employment court, or take it to employment court, get it, and spend the money and do it. If you definitely do it, then do it right.
I'm just a resident. I'm kind of saying, I'd rather have somebody with 20 years experience.
But they need to show up. They need to be trained, they need to
They
show
have
up.
showed up.
I'm done.
They have. What I'm saying is a human error, one call could change that percentage. When
You
the
can
captain-
feel, you can feel that way, that
Captain
one call
admitted.
could change it.
But Captain admitted it. He admitted
He
that,
didn't say anything about one call changing a percentage.
No,
or
but
anything.
you-
You're getting, we're getting into semantics and I understand how you feel.
yeah,
And I appreciate you standing up for your friend, and that's great, or.
well, it's not just a friend, it's somebody that could show up at any one of our houses,
Absolutely,
you know, whether it's EMT or the fire.
right.
I'd rather have somebody that has the experience and the credentials than a new person showing up that doesn't have that.
How do you know the new hire's not gonna have one? Are we gonna, I mean, we can sit here and argue hypothetical.
I'm not
It's a
arguing.
waste of
That's-
everybody's time.
I'm not arguing.
No, but that's what I'm saying, though. It doesn't make it, to sit here and say he admitted this and admitted that, that's not 100% true either. Could human error happen and change things?
Right.
Sure, why not? Why can't human error happen all the time? Human error could happen right here, right? The gentleman that flipped the thing over, could have,
That's his,
something could have happened and it could have flew across the room and hit me in the eye, and, I mean, you can sit here and make statements all night, and I appreciate your concern, but it's,
okay. Well,
again,
then I
we're
feel
not.
like there should be something put into place that has a better reporting system. I mean, with technology out there, software that's out there, come on. I mean, there's plenty of things, tracking systems. I mean, and we're gonna go off on human error probably.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, I'm just stating my opinion as a. You gotta laugh at that?
We're getting nowhere here, so it's,
No,
I understand what you're
You
saying.
don't need to laugh at my concerns. No, it's not okay.
I think too, though, what you're saying is, we can't possibly bring in a firefighter who would have nearly his experience. We don't know that. We could have somebody who comes in and has 20 years experience that
No.
wants to be on our fire
My
department
point
too.
was, you could have gone by human error. 18%, 17%, one call, could have brought it up to that 20%.
It could have,
And
but,
the lack of the reporting system sounds like it's very flawed. So,
okay.
I was
and
19
that-
for 15
and that's-
years, okay? I mean, it's not too hard to.
Thank you.
The reporting system works.
Of course. Well, please.
Mayor and Council, before this evening, this is Public Works Certified Report. Happy to report the water and wastewater plants have met all limits this summer. Some of the completed projects this summer included the service on all 7 generators. Replacing, the wastewater operators replaced a 12-inch meter at our largest lift station at River's Edge. They rebuilt the retaining wall to Royal Oaks lift station, and staff assisted Dusty with the installation of a new water service line for the resident on Patterson Drive. For council's discretion. First power pump pressed a little over 800,000 gallons of biosolids. The biosolids have been hauled out, have been loaded out and spread as well. Staff is working with MPCA, continuing to work with the MPCA concerning our chloride limits. We are not over, we are close. The advice of our consulting engineer has been that we should accept the limit given to us and continue to use the reduction methods such as public education about water softeners. We have seen an increase in pump plugging this year in one particular lift station, called the 01 lift station. It's over on Arrowhead. Just to give you an idea, it has, it's plugged 9 times since July this year. And it plugged 3 times in all of 23. So just so folks is aware, we will be sending notifications to the residents affected that affect that lift station, just be aware. The relief grant work is complete. We completed it this summer. There were 117 trees taken down, 139 planted in multiple parks throughout the city. Public Works, the last part to complete the grant is Public Works will need to water these trees through June of 2026. The dog park was completed this summer as well. There were roughly 40 dogs at the leash cutting event. The dog park has remained quite busy. give you an idea, 25 pounds of waste, dog waste is taken out every 2 to 3 days out of that park. So it's busy. There were 2 recycling events this summer, one in July with 79 vehicles and another in September with 101 respectively. We have also now added a compost site to the file to Public Works. The storms that happened the week of August 26th was a unique experience this year. It's not an experience that we want to have, but it helped Public Works refine our response procedures. And working with the administration, the fire department, and the police department, I want to thank the entire team. It was a pleasure working with the professionals. It's incredible, and it's a high-stress situation like that. Professionalism can ease that, and it was wonderful working with this team. 2 of those nights that week. I would also like to thank the entire Public Works staff for everything they helped with this summer. I kept adding jobs, and we kept evolving, and time's never on our side. And the more projects I added, staff found ways to get all of them done. So I really appreciate the staff of Public Works and how much they got accomplished this summer. With that, I can answer any questions. There.
The question's great report. And just, again, thank your crew for doing a great job. They keep our city functioning. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
I know it's new, but the compost site is it open 24/7? What's the?
So it's inside the facility. We're going to be using it initially at the recycle events instead of sending out the compost. It'll stay on site now. We still get credit for it, and then we'll evolve as we go.
It's a great report. How was it done?
Sorry.
What did you say earlier? Anyway, it's a great report, and you'll thank your staff for everything that they do.
I will, thank you.
And then,
Thank you.
You got it.
you may go now, Ben.
Thank you, ma'am. Dog waste, are they policing it? They're doing self-policing out there, or you guys having to go out there and make the survey of the property? At dog waste at the dog park?
Actually, it's been amazing. The site polices itself, honestly. There's a lot of peer pressure. From one dog owner to another. It's been extremely clean, and the guys have not complained about anything in the lawnmower tires yet, so it's been very good.
Well, good report as usual. I want to say, I was gonna say before the end of the council report, but your track and treat was fantastic. I think you said you had 220 some individuals and parents, and that was awesome. Also, I'm just tickled about the recycle days and the compost pile addition. That's nice too, but the recycle, those guys work really hard, and the volunteerism and the citizens turn out. The guys that show up and are doing the work, and gals are doing the work is one thing, but the people who come and participate and get rid of their refuse and stuff, that one recycle, the hazardous waste kit was fantastic. The line was out in the street, and it was ongoing, and Officer Hearn was there doing prescription drugs, and it was just really neat to see. So you got a good program, and you should be commended, as are the 2 departments for the community outreach that you do it above and beyond. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have nothing further, but I'm sorry I couldn't be at your trunk or treat or the, whatever it was, but. Yeah. Or Mark was there, that's cool. All right, council member reports, stick with Kevin, I suppose.
During the work session last week, we talked about a couple things, cannabis laws that are coming down the pipe from the state legislature. Tobacco store limitations, and a time capsule that's available to anyone who hasn't been, wants to reach out, and there's a couple groups involved. I think if you reach out to Katie or, reach out to Katie, either email or otherwise. And if you have something to contribute, I've been telling a couple of, senior citizens that I know in my neighborhood, they used to have 75 and 80 acre farms in town, and told them, and one of them actually used to be a county, or not, a city board member, before it was even a city council, so I can't think Iyer. But anyways, the trick or treat again, and turned out for that, it was awesome. It was really a good showing. You guys outdid yourself, especially with the surround sound, as far as surround light show that you had out there last year. But and then the last time, go vote tomorrow. Vote if you haven't voted yet. Vote tomorrow. Make your choices to be known, and let's make a difference. We gotta we gotta get some work done here inside and outside of our state, so please vote. That's all.
Thank you, Crystal.
I did not attend the trunk or treat, but my husband and granddaughter went, and they said it was an absolute blast. Brian did say that it was bigger this time than last. She had so much fun, so I appreciate that. That was exciting. Other than that, the work session that everybody spoke about. About it.
Mark, tree, awesome. I was stunned, I really was, I expected maybe 30 cars, and I got there, it was like, whoa, way bigger, and I think a lot of people are actually using that as their Halloween. That appeared to be, I mean, a lot of kids were dressed up, and well, they're dressing up for nights, so they're coming for their thing, so. It's just a great way of getting people familiar with the facility. It was impressive. I also did a work session, but then I also, Paul took me on a tour. Very much appreciate that with his lead team. They got a fantastic team, and I got an in-depth tour of the water and waste and everything. I appreciate it very much, so thank you.
Eric?
We don't want to have any.
Thank you. The work session as well, could not make the trunk or treat deal, I had to work late that night, so sorry about that. I heard it was awesome, so that's cool. I have nothing else to report. It's been an interesting night. To say the least, but I just appreciate staff. To me, like I say, I don't know, it's frustrating to me, and I do apologize for losing it a little bit tonight. You know, something I've been able to kind of keep my cool most of the time, but unfortunately tonight, it just lack of accountability, multiple situations. There's really no excuse, so I do apologize. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. You have a motion?
No.
What do we got? Oh, we got a close meeting.
Yeah.
It's been so long, I'm sorry. I'm tired. All right, thank you for that, sorry, and all right. In a few minutes, I'm gonna be closing this meeting under Minnesota statute section 13D.03, subdivision 1. That's that. That's it. That's it. So at 8:30, we'll close this. Or do we need a motion? We do need a motion. Yeah, we need a motion.
Make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Roberts, do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Freckles, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is now closed.
For the record, it's for labor negotiations, to talk about patrol and disturbance.
For the record.
Putting that for the record.
Thank you.